We are kicking off today with AEW Big Business, as the show wasted no time in giving fans the big debut that many were waiting to see. After a brief intro by Renee Paquette and the announcers, we immediately got the debut of Mercedes Mone in AEW, who said that she was pleased to be home in Boston. This got a welcome home chant from the fans, and Mone thanked the crowd for its support and gave a recap of her life leading up to this moment. Mone specifically mentioned having unfinished business with Willow Nightingale, who fans may remember was in the match in which Mercedes suffered her ankle injury last May. The plan had been for Mone to become the first New Japan Strong Women's Champion, but due to an injury, an audible was called that saw Willow win the gold instead. At just over 10 minutes, this was a great way for Mone to introduce herself to any fans who may not know her, but based on the reaction she got, everyone in Boston knew of her. Mone had some awesome hair for the segment and had brand new entrance music as well, and while that was good, we feel her New Japan theme was much catchier. This was a great way for AEW to kick off the show and immediately put Mone over as a big deal that AEW trusts to set the mood for an entire special episode of programming. Mone helped set the tone for the rest of the show, and what did you think of Mercedes' AEW debut? Give your opinion in the comments down below. As we said, Mone mentioned her history with Willow Nightingale during her debut promo and came face to face with the former Strong Women's Champion later in the show. In the main event of the show, Nightingale faced Riho, who had previously defeated Chris Statlander and now wanted to beat the second woman of their tag team. In a meeting of one of AEW's smallest competitors against a powerhouse in Willow, this was a mismatched pairing, but that didn't stop Riho from getting plenty of offense in. At one point, Riho hit a Northern Light suplex on Willow, though it did seem more unrealistic than most things we see every week, and Willow had to help for sure. Despite a strong showing from Riho, Nightingale won with a Doctor Bomb, but was attacked post-match by Julia Hart and Sky Blue. This brought out Mercedes Mone, who took out Blue in the aisle before hitting her finisher on the AEW TBS champion in the middle of the ring. Willow and Mercedes posed together and had a hug after the match, so it looks like any feud they have will be based more on respect than animosity. So Mercedes Mone is officially All Elite, but according to recent reports, that's been the case for far longer than this week's Big Business edition of Dynamite. Fightful Select and Matt Men's Andrew Zarian both report that a deal was believed to have been agreed to back in December of 2023, and that she's been on AEW's payroll for 2 months. This agreement coincided with Mone securing several trademarks related to her name, hinting at a long-term commitment to AEW, and it's believed to be a multi-year deal. It's also noted that New Japan expects to play a role in this deal, with hopes that she will continue to compete at their events, but AEW will unquestionably be Mone's priority. While some had held out hope, WWE sources said back in January that they expected Mone to join AEW rather than reach a last-minute deal to return under Triple H. Speaking of WWE, this week's Dynamite did see some current superstars travel to Boston, as Bayley, Naomi, and Tamina Snuka were in Beantown to support their friend. On Twitter, Naomi shared a video showing that the group wore masks to avoid being noticed, though we'd argue the bright, colorful wool masks would make them stick out more. It shouldn't be a surprise that these superstars wanted to support Mone, as Bayley and Naomi went to Wrestle Kingdom 17 in January 2023 to watch Mone's New Japan debut. Similarly, Mone, Bayley, and Tamina made sure to be at the TNA tapings last year that saw Naomi debut as Trinity, and Mone and Bayley supported their friend at Hard to Kill 2024. Perhaps the wool mask got too warm during AEW Big Business, as in a photo being shared online, Bayley could be spotted without the mask, watching her friend's debut. Clearly, the group are close and will support each other no matter what, even if that means WWE stars making the trip to Boston, Massachusetts for AEW Big Business. Naomi, Bayley, and Tamina Snuka were all present for Mone's debut in AEW, but they're hardly the only names in the world of wrestling to take notice. On Twitter, Kathy Kelly shared a couple of emojis to share her excitement for Mercedes Mone being All Elite, but wisely stopped short of mentioning WWE's opposition. Nikki Garcia, better known to fans as Nikki Bella, was also thrilled to see Mone arrive in AEW, saying that she loved the debut and everything Mone represents. Garcia's days in the ring are seemingly behind her, but Mone's days in AEW are just getting started, with everybody intrigued to see how she fares in Tony Khan's promotion. In the weeks leading up to the show, neither Mone nor AEW had been especially subtle about her debut, and fans walked into the TD Garden wanting to see her. Right after her segment ended, AEW announced the in-arena sale of exclusive Mercedes Mone merchandise, and fans in their droves wanted to grab some pieces of merch. On Twitter, long lines for the merchandise stall were shown with fans queuing up to get the exclusive first ever AEW t-shirt of Mercedes Mone. AEW Dynamite was the big business show, and Mone certainly did big business on her first night on the job, in what is a positive sign for her future as an all-elite talent. More from Dynamite, as with the AEW World Championship on the line, Wardlow wasted no time in going right after Samoa Joe and took control immediately in a surprising move. Wardlow took Joe out of the ring to dish out more punishment, but once they got back in the ring, Joe was able to get some shots in on his former tag team partner. Wardlow is clearly a big Jeff Hardy fan, as he uses the Swanton and Whisper in the Wind semi-regularly, and it's easy to forget how agile he is due to his size. The same could be said about Samoa Joe as well, and at one point, Wardlow saw a fake knee injury which looked very real, and we imagine somebody is teaching how to sell in AEW. Despite a strong showing by the challenger, Joe was able to retain the title by choking Wardlow out until the ref stopped the match, but his celebration was short. Swerve Strickland tried to get to him but was held back by officials as Joe took his belt and walked away, making it clear that their story is far from finished. This was a fun bout, but it wasn't everything we know these two can do together. It was a good first chapter in a story that isn't over yet. In his first match on Dynamite, Kazuchika Okada was in six-man tag team action, teaming with the Young Bucks to take on Eddie Kingston, Pac, and Penta El Cero Miedo. The first half of this match was relatively straightforward. We got to see most combinations of people fighting each other, but the pace was steady and everyone was observing tags. Once we returned from the break though, things broke down into chaos, with Pac saving most of his big moves for later in the match, meaning he really stood out for a bit. Kingston and Okada had the most personal exchange, and were the two men involved in the finish when the Mad King fell to the Rainmaker, confirming what'll be Okada's first feud. In case it wasn't clear enough, Okada held up the Continental Championship after the match, signaling his desire to win it to end a decent outing for everyone involved. But what do you make of this? Should Okada indeed be the next AEW Continental Champion? Give your thoughts in the comments below. When Janelle Grant's lawsuit made reference to a former UFC heavyweight champion identified as Brock Lesnar, WWE wasted no time in pulling the beast from all plans. Lesnar was pulled from the Men's Royal Rumble match and Elimination Chamber, but as previously reported, there have been movements in WWE that could lead to his return. In an update from Fightful Select, it is noted that while Lesnar's profile disappeared from WWE's website, the company didn't exactly get rid of it, despite what things looked like. Instead, Fightful made clear that they kept Lesnar's profile intact, but simply hidden, seemingly under the belief that his profile would be put back on the website eventually. It seems there are some in WWE who believe that Lesnar's removal from WWE would only be a temporary thing, and it seems those people were right to think this way. With Lesnar's profile now being back on the site and rumblings about a comeback, it seems WWE is ready to bring Brock back, but is this the right call for the company to make? WrestleMania news now, as we know this year's show will take place in less than a month in Philadelphia, but there's now been another sign that Mania 41 is heading to Minneapolis. The Star Tribune reports that Minnesota has made a bid for the 2025 event to take place in the US Bank Stadium in what would be the first ever WrestleMania held in the state. The president of Minnesota Sports has said that he's hopeful Minnesota gets the show, and we have to wonder if Brock Lesnar's expected return is connected to this news. We've got some sad news to report now, as Jackie Crockett, a personality known for his time with World Championship Wrestling, has died. News of his passing was shared by his brother David Crockett, who was a wrestler and announcer back in the day, while Jackie worked as a cameraman. Jackie was the lead camera operator for Jim Crockett Promotions, his father's company, which would eventually become WCW. Jackie Crockett was with WCW right until the end, with the final episode of Monday Nitro in March 2021, and we'd like to send our condolences to the Crockett's at this sad time. Back to AEW Dynamite now, as Will Ospreay came out to give an interview about his upcoming match against Bryan Danielson. The promo was short and to the point. Some people may have even wanted him to say more. Next up, Darby Allin, still hurting from Revolution, took on Jay White, and the Switchblade wasted no time in honing in on those injuries. A missed coffin drop would seal his fate though, as he took a bad spill to the floor, and though he beat the ref's 10 count, he immediately walked into White's finisher. Post-match, the Guns continued to assault Allin, leading to the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn running down to stop them from taking it too far. This led to White hitting Gunn with a chair to officially disband the Bang Bang Scissor Gang for good, and Bullet Club Gold left everyone down in the ring. Allin was likely written off TV so he could climb Mount Everest, though we imagine he's made that task all the harder on himself given what he's put his body through. We'll have to see what's next for both Bullet Club Gold and the Acclaimed, and what did you think of this split? Let us know in the comments. In tag team action, Hook and Chris Jericho, dubbed Lion Hook, defeated the Gates of Agony in a short match that was good for what it was. In a backstage interview, Jericho said he needs to know what it's like to face Hook, so the pair agreed to a singles match in the future. And that was this week's Dynamite, and of course, the big business show was centered around the arrival of Mercedes Moné. Having her open the show was a familiar way for AEW to introduce someone, as it happened with CM Punk too, in a sign of how highly AEW thinks of the CEO. Seeing the women's division in the main event slot was a nice change, but let's hope it's not just a one-time thing, because Mercedes was debuting. There were no squash matches, so every segment felt like it served a real purpose, and most of the action was fun, as was the non-wrestling stuff. The Bang Bang Scissor Gang's breakup puts us on a path towards a big match, and it's good that AEW made clear the direction of the likes of Ospreay and Okada. In short, this was a solid episode, and the clear MVP was Mercedes Moné. And what did you make of AEW Big Business? Let us know down in the comments. On Raw, Sami Zayn won the gauntlet match to earn an Intercontinental Championship match with Gunther at WrestleMania 40 in a huge win for the Canadian. There are some who feel that Chad Gable was more deserving of the win, and the controversial finish to the match has now got the attention of the champ himself. While Zayn did get the pinfall on Gable, photos shared online show that Chad had his shoulders up at a critical moment, with many feeling Zayn's victory should be nullified. On Twitter, Gunther didn't address the pinfall in question, but said that there was so much drama, and shared a photo of himself with his championship. It remains to be seen if the title match at WrestleMania 40 will change, as many believe Gable should be added to the bout, making it a triple threat. For now, the match remains Gunther versus Sami Zayn, but do you think a change should happen? Sound off below. Hall of Fame news now, as this year's class has received its newest member, as Thunderbolt Patterson will be inducted this April. While Patterson may be a relatively unknown name compared to his fellow inductees, he was a big name during his career that began in 1964. Patterson was one of the most gifted on the mic during his era, but could back up what he said in the ring, and formed a successful tag team with the late Ole Anderson. This team would end after Ole's kayfabe relation Arn convinced Ole to ditch Patterson in what would be the first move that would result in the formation of the Four Horsemen. Before Patterson's announcement, a leaked list of inductees had his name on it, as well as Lia Maivia and Bray Wyatt. The Wrestling Observer confirmed that Maivia, the grandmother of The Rock and a promoter, will be inducted, but there's no word on Wyatt just yet, so we'll have to see who's next for the Hall of Fame. And we're ending with WWE's Performance Center, which often welcomes ex-superstars as guest coaches, and this week, a name from WWE and WCW provided his input. PW Insider reports that Dave Taylor was helping at training this week and was serving as a guest coach in the state-of-the-art facility. Taylor, who teamed with William Regal in WWE, isn't the only notable name spotted though, as it's added that Ace Steel has been serving as a guest coach as well. Steel signed with WWE as a coach in 2019, but left in January 2022 and would swiftly join CM Punk as part of AEW before both men were released for good last year. It's interesting to see Steel at the PC, as he's currently working for TNA as a producer, and it goes to show that you never know who WWE may call in as a guest coach.